Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Always glad to have back my friend, the former Attorney General. He's a great Attorney General of the great state of Texas, the current governor of the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott. Greg, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Well, Happy New Year. Great to talk to you.
You know, I played some audio yesterday from Mayorkas. I played some audio yesterday from KJP. I played some audio from some other idiots in the administration. My word, not yours. I was stunned that they called you out by name, and Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary that has ruined the border, that has opened the border and flooded our state with illegal aliens, literally said that you refuse to follow the law. He said you refuse to work with state and local officials. You're the problem, Greg Abbott, as to why we've got the border problems that we have. What do you say to that?
That's just total insanity. As everybody in the country knows, Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, he is the one who is not executing the laws that were passed by the United States Congress to prevent illegal immigration. He's the one who has implemented Joe Biden's open border policies. This led to an all-time record of more than 8 million people coming across the border just under Joe Biden's tenure. And so the only person in America that's doing a worse job on the border than Mayorkas is Joe Biden. Remember this, Joe. It was just 4 years ago we had the lowest amount of illegal immigration in 40 years. And that's because President Trump put into place the Remain in Mexico policy, Title 42 policy, the end of catch and release, and building a border wall. When Biden came into office, he eliminated all of those 4 policies and opened up the border to people coming from more than 150 countries across the globe. We are suffering this catastrophe because of Joe Biden and Secretary Mayorkas.
It's Governor Greg Abbott, the great state of Texas. Go follow him everywhere. He's doing an amazing job. Governor, as we talk about this, you're right. When Trump was in office, first of all, he worked with you all the time. He talked to Dan Patrick all the time. He made sure Texas had exactly what it needed. He came here all the time and saw what was happening on the border. Zero tolerance worked because we've got laws that actually would work if you apply them. As you said, Title 42, Title 8, stay in Mexico, all that stuff worked. Do they think that we forgot what was happening just 3 years ago? Because in December, Greg, we had over 300,000 who we know came across illegally. That's not the gotaways. That's a record for the history of our country. Do they think that we didn't realize that 3 years ago things were working?
They actually do think that. Because remember, Mayorkas has not only told the public, but he testified under oath to Congress that the border is more secure than it's ever been, and they're doing everything they can to secure the border. All of it is just completely false. They all pretend, it was Mayorkas yesterday who said that climate change was leading to the onslaught at the border.
Stunning.
When it's the only change that took place is the change in policy. Let's go back to the first thing you just said. You mentioned, factually correct, that Donald Trump worked with me all the time on the border. I have either written or hand-delivered to President Biden about the border and hand-delivered to him a letter that provided 5 simple things that he could do right now without even getting a new law passed that would secure the border. Never have received a reply from them at all. It's President Biden who is purposefully not working with me, the state leader of the state of Texas.
Governor, it's Governor Greg Abbott, the great state of Texas, my governor. I don't understand what Mayorkas was talking about. Can you even work out in your brain what he meant when he said you weren't working with local and state officials? Literally, you're the top state official that sent the National Guard there. You literally the top state official that just signed a law that we'll talk about in a second that is going to quell the flow of illegal aliens coming across the border. You're the guy who is literally working with the border town executives, whether they be mayor or county executive or whomever, most of them Democrats, by the way, and you're working with them because they're frustrated beyond belief. Do you have any idea what he was talking about?
So everything you just said is correct. You talked about how I'm working with the state and local leaders in Texas. What Mayorkas was talking about is that I wasn't working with Mayor Adams in New York, with the Chicago mayor, with leaders like that in other parts of the country where we are sending buses to or planes to or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But here's the point that he's missing, though. For one, is the Biden administration that has sent most of the people to New York, to Chicago, and to those other places. Not the state of Texas, but for another, what he's missing is the fact that it's the president who's not working with those local leaders. The problem that they have in New York, the problem that they have in Chicago and Denver and so many other places with the migrants they're having to deal with is not because of me. Is because of Joe Biden, is because of Secretary Mayorkas and the policies that they are pursuing of open borders.
The last number I saw, Greg, out of New York was that they got 32,000. 32,000. We had 12,000 in one day 2 weeks ago. What are they talking about? Why are they crumbling these sanctuary cities? That when he ran for mayor, he said New York is a sanctuary city. It's going to remain a sanctuary city. Everybody's welcome. In Washington, D.C., they've got literal fiestas welcoming everybody who's here illegally. We're a sanctuary city. Please send them. And then when you send them, they freak out and they crumble. You've got a tax base in New York City that is 1,000 times more than Del Rio, Texas, and they can't handle 32,000. How do they think that you're handling it here on the border?
Well, you're spot on, but we got to emphasize something here, Joe, and that is not just the hypocrisy. But I think Democrats have now been exposed that they really are anti-immigrant. You know, they've been talking about how they're pro-immigrant, all that kind of stuff for all these years. And then when put to the test, not only do they buckle, but they reject it. So the Democrat mayor of New York, the Democrat mayor of Chicago, the Democrat leaders across the country, when they have to actually deal with illegal immigrants, they push back and say, no, we do not want them. And so they're just flat out liars when it comes to the game of pretend that they support immigrants, which they do not. They're rejecting these immigrants and trying to push them back to Texas. It's all fine and fun when it's Texas that has to deal with it.
Right.
But by God, if New York and Chicago have to deal with it, it's altogether different.
Governor Greg Abbott, the great state of Texas, got to talk about SB 4. Immediately, the left said SB 4 would cause a need. It would force law enforcement to racially profile. Any truth to that?
That's, completely ridiculous. No truth whatsoever. It's the corner they have to run to when they have no factual basis to talk about. So think about this. For one, it applies. It authorizes law enforcement to arrest these people who are crossing across the border in front of their very own eyes.
Right.
And the only reason why they're crossing across the border there, the only reason why we would even be arresting them in the first place is because Joe Biden is not there enforcing the laws passed by Congress. But Joe, there's this also. They act like, oh, these are all Hispanics coming from Mexico. They're coming from more than 150 countries across the globe. They're coming from China. They're coming from Iran. They're coming from Russia. They're coming from across the globe. There's no one race that's involved here. We got people from across the entire globe that we're trying to stop, including, by the way, terrorists who are coming across our border. There is a law enforcement need that we have to secure not only our state, but our country against those terrorists entering our country.
It is Governor Greg Abbott, the great state of Texas. You know, what's interesting is Texas is a majority-minority state. We've got tons of Hispanics. You know that I'm based in San Antonio. It's a 65+% Hispanic city. If you are racially profiling on what you think people look like, everybody in the state would be getting pulled over every second of every day. That's certainly not happening. But you said something that the national media is not saying, and they're lying out of omission, that this is when law enforcement in Texas visibly sees somebody coming across the border illegally, that's when they can take action. This isn't if you're in Amarillo or Dallas. This is if you're on a border and you're coming across and we watch you come across, you've got two choices. You get arrested, go through the process, or you turn around and go back. I mean, those are the choices, right?
Those are the choices. I'll add one other thing to make sure that we got this space covered, and that is one thing that we deal with. We deal with smugglers all the time.
Yes.
And sometimes those smugglers make it across the border. They're transporting people illegally, and law enforcement has the right to track them down, to pull them over, and to arrest them. And they that may be on the border. It may be in San Antonio. It may be in Houston.
Yeah.
Joe, you'll remember this. San Antonio, it was last year. that we had that tractor trailer truck where 53 migrants died in the back of the tractor trailer truck.
Right.
And the smuggling operations like that occur. And so law enforcement does have the right to be able to arrest anybody in that type of situation.
Because, Greg, the cartels don't care about life. They just care about the money they got to bring them here. If they die in the back of a trailer, the cartels don't care. And from what I understand, and correct me if I get this wrong, SB 4 also allows law enforcement a more streamlined way to identify stash houses where they've got 100 inside of a house living inhumanely. You can go in there and break that up.
Well, and this is a different law that is signed on the very same day.
Okay.
This is Senate bill it concerns illegal smuggling and illegal stash houses, and what it does is it imposes mandatory minimum sentences. We're tired of these judges and prosecutors letting these people get arrested and then put back out on the street. But for it puts a mandatory minimum of 10 years behind bars. For operating a stash house, a mandatory minimum of 5 years behind bars.
It is Governor Greg Abbott, the great state of Texas, being attacked by the Biden administration every day when Biden should be working with you, Governor. Last thing on immigration, and this is really, really important. The national audience that hears my show and sees my show, generally speaking, doesn't know this. There are rape trees where little girls and little boys are raped. They put their underwear on trees on the other side of the border. You've got human smuggling, sex trafficking. You've got parents that are being killed and their children are being stolen to be brought across the border. And for some reason, those on the left in this country either don't know that, don't want to know that, or don't care about that. What do you say to people who don't understand how inhumane this is for the actual illegal immigrants themselves?
Well, so everything you said is correct. But importantly, the Biden administration, the liberals, the Democrats, and a lot of the media, they turn a blind eye to this, and they ignore the fact that Biden's open border policies entices people into situations where they will be raped, some will be killed, many will be extorted, very harmful things will happen, they'll be trafficked, etc., because of Joe Biden's open border policies. The easiest way to stop all those people from all those inhumane actions from going through that is to make it clear. If you come across the border in the United States of America between a port of entry, you will not be allowed to stay, period. And that'll put an end to all of the cartel activity taking place between the ports of entry. Well,
and that's all you're actually saying. Go to a port of entry if you want to come in, then the feds can deal with you. That's what the buoys were about. That's what the razor wire is about. It's very simple. There are openings. Greg, they try to act like there are no openings between here and Mexico. There are several gates, several ports of entry.
In Texas alone, there's about 28 ports of entry.
Wow.
If you go to the border and look to your left and look to your right, you're going to see a port of entry. And the only reason or way to cross the border between a port of entry is with the cartels. And the cartels do not do that for free. They extort things from you. They extract things from you, whether it be sex, drugs, or money, or whatever they're doing.
It is Governor Greg Abbott, the great state of Texas. I know that you found some time for us today, and I've taken a lot of it. I just want to ask you one question about a recent ruling that the left is lying about as well when it comes to Texas, and it's about abortion. The Biden administration tried to circumvent Texas's abortion law, or the 6-week or whatever it is law that we have here, and they tried to do so by forcing emergency rooms to perform abortions. You have to perform an abortion if somebody shows up and says they need one. They tried to make it about somebody who had a stillborn baby, but this was a blanket push by Biden to try to say, you can have an abortion in Texas. We say so, right?
Well, and obviously what the United States Supreme Court decided is that the abortion issue is one to be decided by state.
Yes.
And what that means is the federal government does not have a say. And so obviously the Biden administration was trying to circumvent the United States Supreme Court decision.
And at the end of the day, it's not in the Constitution. It never should have been a United States centralized government thing. But do you agree with me that Biden tried to circumvent what Texas is doing about abortion?
Oh, absolutely. That's clearly what they were trying to do.
It is Governor Greg Abbott, the great state of Texas. Greg, don't be a stranger. Come back soon. I appreciate what you're doing on the border, and the people who are watching and listening on my 16 stations just in Texas know that you are stepping up. And if they're attacking you, you must be doing it right.
Well, God bless you. Great to visit with you again. Take care.
Happy New Year, Governor. We're back after this in the Joe Pag Show. Stay right here.